Welcome to Sage Audio. Today let's talk about the top 10 advanced mixing tips. But first, if you have a mix that you need mastered, send it to us to receive a free mastered sample of it with the link in the description. Side image, transient expansion. In this video, the tips are in no particular order. Now, this is something that I came across when making one of these videos and I really like the sound of it. In short, I send a signal to an aux track and isolate the side image using the free plugin MSED. Then, I introduce Newfangled Audio's Punctuate to expand the transients. Usually the side image lacks transients, so this technique has a really unique and enjoyable sound, especially on drums. Let's take a listen. Emulating natural surround placement. For the most natural sounding stereo image, we could emulate how a listener's head blocks high frequencies. First, I'll duplicate the track that I want to affect and pan the original and the duplicate, hard left and right. Then with an EQ, I'll attenuate the highs on one of the tracks. I like to use the PSP Infinistrip for this since it's zero latency and I can quickly switch EQ emulations while keeping the settings the same. With an EQ analyzer, we can see how the slope of the attenuation changes. Now, to explain why this works, if a sound source is, say, to the listener's left, then the head is going to absorb and block some of the high frequencies in the right ear. So if I want the sound to seem like it's on the left, I'll attenuate the highs on the right, and vice versa. Let's take a listen. If you're enjoying the video, hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't already. It's free and it helps us bring you more videos. Creating depth with mid-image. For these next two chapters, I want to emulate the depth and the width functions of the Neve Portico mastering processor, starting with the depth function. Now, if we look at the Portico's manual, we'll find the frequency response of these filters, all of which are on the mid-image. So, say I wanted to emulate filter type 4, I would create a band on the mid-image that matches that of the Portico. I'll use the most aggressive settings at first, but then I can reduce the amplitude of the bell to blend the effect in, just like how the hardware allows. So let's take a listen to an emulation of this filter type. Creating width with side image. The width function of the Portico affects the side image, again depending on the frequency setting that was selected. So I'm going to emulate filter type 8 this time, or the low mids, and like the last chapter, match the filter shape and amplitude as close as possible. Again, I'll start with the most aggressive setting that the Portico allows and then dial the effect back. Let's take a listen to how this affects the signal's width. Mixing with impulse responses. Impulse responses are typically used for reverb or guitar cabinet emulation, but some engineers use them to closely emulate hardware and audio mediums. Now, one of my favorites that I've found is of a Studer A812 tape machine where the engineer utilized different gain settings to achieve various results. Now, although an impulse response can't replicate the harmonic content of the hardware and tape, it gives a great representation of its frequency response and ADSR. I'll use Logic Pro's stock Space Designer plugin, load in the impulse response, and reduce the dry signal to 0 to avoid phase cancellation. Let's take a listen to how the Studer impulse response alters the sound, and I'll use a higher gain version since it's going to make the effect easier to hear. Observing the delta of processing. Some plugins have a delta function which lets you quickly observe how the processor is changing your audio, but if you want to monitor changes from a plugin that doesn't offer this function, you can try this. Duplicate the audio that you're processing, then use the effect on the original. Next, place a phase inverter on the duplicate and invert the phase. Now, everything that's identical between the two are going to be nullified, while the processing will stay the same amplitude. Let's try this out with some saturation to hear how the processor is affecting our signal. Out of key resonance trick. This is something that I've shown in another video, but I like it a lot, so let's cover it one more time. First, I need to know the key of my song, which for our demo track in this video is E major. This means that notes C, D, F, G, and A sharp are all out of key. Next, with a synth and the cleanest sine waves possible, I'll play or program these out of key notes and have them last for the duration of the song. Then I'll mute the track, and next I'll insert the plugin Soothe 2 or an alternative resonance reducer on my vocals or an instrument. Lastly, I'll sidechain the muted, out-of-key track to use it as a trigger for this plugin's processing. As a result, the plugin reads these out-of-key notes as being too loud, in turn, attenuating their respective frequencies. This makes the instrument sound more in tune and, in my opinion, more musical. Let's take a listen.
Look away, you look away. What's really going on? What's really going on? Would you tell me, can't you say what's really going on? What's really going on?
If you're enjoying the channel, use the search box to watch more of our videos. Making drums more musical. Let's use a similar concept to the last chapter, but implement it more simply. With an EQ, I'll amplify in-key notes on the drums, mainly just the root note of E. Then I'll make the bands dynamic to expand these notes whenever a transient hits. For drums, this really brings out pleasant resonances and adds a musical element to it, especially on drums in which the key of the track wasn't considered during production. Let's take a listen. Sidechaining the click track. Another way to make an instrument more musical when you're mixing is by using the click track as an external sidechain. So first, I'll export a portion of the click track and bring it back in as an audio track, then I'll mute it. Next, I'll insert a processor, in this case a multiband dynamics processor, and expand the signal using the click track as the trigger. I like this effect a lot on an instrument track or a bus since it adds a percussive element to it that otherwise wouldn't have been there. Let's take a listen. Monitoring with impulse responses. For this chapter, I used a one sample section of white noise, and then I ran it through some speakers that I like and I use for casual listening. I recorded the output using the flattest frequency response microphone that I have, and then I exported the re-recorded impulse as a WAV file. Lastly, I imported the file back into the Space Designer plugin that I used earlier and reduced the dry signal to 0, just like before. Now I can emulate the response of these speakers and the effect of the room. The end result definitely isn't perfect, but this is something that you could try out on your car speakers or anything that you want to monitor. Let's take a listen to how this impulse response affects the audio. If you have a mix that you need mastered, send it to us to receive a free mastered sample of it with the link in the description. Thank you so much for watching.